This is Guy Fuller's metal detector. He asked me if I would tinker with it and figure out what was wrong. He tried to do some modification to it, and long story short, he broke a wire off of the back side of one of these pins. And this is what plugs into the control unit for the coil. This is the coil wire. So upon taking it apart, I had to cut this boot open to get this assembly out, and I've had to carve away a lot of this white rubbery plastic sealant that they must have injected into this boot to protect all the connections. Well, it didn't protect it enough from that roughhouse Texas guy, because he snapped the wire right off. Attaboy. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all these. I had to cut it so that I could trace it and find out where the broken wire was. No way of telling until I did that. So I'm going to finish carving off all this white waxy plastic stuff, whatever it is. Get the rest of these, I'm going to unsolder the rest of these little leads, and I'm going to strip back a little bit of each of these. We've already wrote down our wiring schematic as to which pin has which color wire on it. We're going to resolder that back together. I'm going to put it all back in this boot, and if I can find any, I might even squirt a little silicone caulking in there or something to seal it up, kind of like they have it here, you know, just so it doesn't take too much abuse, you know, for this hardcore machine here. And it'll make a suitable starter machine for the young man who's going to own it shortly. So we'll get back to you when we've got a little bit more progress. Here we go. Soldering iron's all warmed up. I just put it in the vice grips to help me hold it. A little bit heavier than the plain old gravity. See if we can't get these wires off. There's one. This will need to tin a soldering iron a little bit. Okay. Crap. I gotta splice some of these wires back. Hold tight. Alright, so we're soldered up now. The best we can do with the cheapo iron and all this stuff. But each one of those wires went in the tube nicely. All those pins. And according to my diagram, it goes from this pin around, according to my diagram, it is shield, white, green, red, black. And we have shield, white, green, red, black. So we're in the right order. There it is. I filled in all the gappage with some, it's actually Phenol-Seal tub and bath caulking. It dries pretty rubbery. And then once that's done, we'll see about squeezing that boot over everything again. Maybe a couple of well-placed zip ties and some electrical tape. We'll plug it back into Badass Bounty Hunter. Maybe even do an air test. We'll see. We've got to let that dry. So we'll let it dry up a little bit, and it's still a little gooey in the middle, but I think we got enough to get accomplished what we need to get accomplished. I'm going to do a little something different, a little trick I used to use back in my CB repair days. A little bit of super glue. Can't hardly read it anymore, but it's basic super glue. That's just a commercial size bottle. And I'm going to glue this shut when we're done But another trick I wanted to show you guys is I'm also going to put some glue on this shield, the plastic casing of this wiring, and actually glue it to this boot. What that does is it allows, since I know a kid's going to be using it, or even if it wasn't a kid, it allows somebody who's going to be a little careless and actually try to pull on the wire to pull it out. It's going to pull the boot, and that's going to take away some of the, a little bit of the pressure. It's going to be it's going to be not pulling on the wires so much. So I'm just going to stuff this puppy back in here. I'm going to use a little too much goo, but being that it's still soft, it's okay. And I'm going to need to put this in funny angles to try and glue it, so I'm going to stop the camera and show you when I'm done. I wanted to remind you guys too, one thing to remember when you're dealing with super glue, crazy glue, or anything, any strong adhesive. It says it on the bottle, and take it for truth. This stuff does bond skin instantly. When I was in the military and we were on board ship, the guy had a little tiny dot of it on his finger. He didn't know it. And he went to rub his eye. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. Not only did he glue his finger to his eyelid, but he glued his eyeball shut. They were able to take a scalpel and basically cut his fingerprint off. So he had a little piece of his finger stuck on his eyelid, and his eye was glued shut. And all they could do at that point was apply some sort of a ointment or salve or whatever, and put a patch on his eye. And it took a few days for it to wear off and finally be able to open his eye again. But yeah, just be really careful with this stuff. So that's all I did was glue it shut. That should be sufficient. I just use these to keep applying pressure, to the seam until it sets, And right in here in the ridges, I don't know if you can see it very well, but I squeezed some of the super glue down inside of there to, really bond right to the plastic jacket of the wire itself. So the next thing I'm going to do is let this dry for a few minutes, plug it back into the detector, make sure my connections still work, and we'll see how it works. Be right back. So there's good news and bad news. Good news is we fixed the coil. Bad news is this thing doesn't work that good. I know you can't imagine how this doesn't work superior to anything out there. I mean, it's a metal detector, right? How different can they be? Well, problem we have, where's my fingers? It turns on now, which it did do before. We can turn up the gain enough, sensitivity enough to get some chatter and back it off. And we do, we have a lot of rebar on the concrete floor, but we can detect, that's a socket set, we can detect metal. So it does what it's supposed to do. However, the range and depth on this thing is not all that great. I know putting it on a metal table is probably not the best of ideas for an accurate test, but we're just past the chatter. We've got a dollar coin here, just a Susan B. It's a 79, just something I happen to have. So there's our depth. Out here, squeak. What is that, 4 inches? So, I mean, for a kid, probably not going to have the patience to dig much deeper than that anyway, I suppose. The other thing I wasn't able to fix is the meter. That is too far gone. I don't know if you can see, but these little screws here that hold it together, they got some oxidization on there. Oxidized. which tells me this sat in a moist area, maybe a basement, for a long period of time, or out in somebody's garage and got hit with the weather many times. So now the meter doesn't work. So anyway, our little experiment worked. We fixed the detector. And there she sits in all her glory, ready for a little boy, a young man, whatever he is, I'm not even sure, to get out and do an adventure. You're probably going to have to throw quarters down in front of him so he can find something, but hey, whatever. He's out there, right?